Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday live stream. Today, we're going to be looking at a few of the Ubuntu 23.04 variants and talk through some of the odd behavior I have observed so far. And maybe even demo a couple of those things. So if we still have time, we'll take a look at Fedora 38 towards the end of the stream, and maybe we'll even take a look at this new distribution called BlendOS. Again, time permitting. So that's our agenda for today. Let's go ahead and get things moving a little bit. Okay, so I have the vanilla standard GNOME version of Ubuntu here. Remind me later. So, first things first, the install on this version is using their new installer. It does not currently have the OEM install, which at least not in virtual machines, which I found rather odd because the OEM install has been a staple for years. But so far, this has been pretty stable. I've not had any major issues with it or random error messaging coming up. One thing I do want to do right away is turn off the personal folder on the desktop. It annoys me. So, latest or recent versions of Ubuntu and Thunderbird, it's got LibreOffice installed. The file manager hasn't really changed much. They have pushed harder on the Snap packaging, and that is a change across the board on all of their variants of Ubuntu 23.04. But by and large, this is a nice improvement. It's running GNOME 44, so there are enhancements to be had just because of that upgrade. And again, you get your option of light or dark mode and different things you can do with that. All right. David, welcome. Thank you for stopping in. Jay, can't stay, but we'll watch the replay. Fair enough. I've had to watch your replays a few times. I've either missed them or fallen asleep during. But hey, it's all good. I admit I have no issues with snaps, especially since you can install server apps. Yes. So that's kind of my assessment as well. Snaps came out of the server and IoT areas, and I still believe they are well suited for server applications. I'm not the biggest fan necessarily on the desktop, but I think over time, as they address the speed issues or lack thereof, lack of speed in some of the applications for launching, I think things will even out a little bit. So my biggest argument for using Ubuntu and whether you're going to keep the snaps or whether you're going to use flat packs or whatever floats your boat. I'm not here to judge. Um, you know, Ubuntu is one of a small handful of distributions that has wide support when it comes to business level things. And as we all know, businesses like to stabilize and have consistency across the board as much as possible. Unless you're dealing with very technical users, and then all bets are off, and usually things get a little more relaxed. But for your run of the mill office staff, and I would argue that at the library, probably 95% of the stuff I do could be done from a Linux desktop as easy or easier than from the Windows desktop that I have on my desk. But that's, again, one of those things. Flatpak and App Image are fine for desktop apps. Absolutely. I've used all of them myself, and it's to me it boils down to being a matter of the best tool for the job. And if one package version is working well for me and the other one is not, then I'll stick with what's working. And it's that simple. So, but overall, the software included in Ubuntu 23.04 is working well. I think this is encouraging for what we can expect out of the 24.04 LTS, the next LTS version. If they keep some of the consistency moving and keep the stability where it's at, then things will be coming along nicely by the time next year rolls around at this time and we get that next LTS version. So yeah, other than sort of some refinements and stability enhancements, I have not noticed a lot of huge changes in this version of Ubuntu. And I've currently got this running on my ThinkPad, and I have for several weeks now. Well, probably 2.5 weeks, anyways. I ran the release candidate version, and then it's upgraded to the full 23.04 release. But it's kind of an experiment with that machine. I'm not 100% buying in quite yet. I also want to test out the Unity version on that machine and see if that runs any better or worse. But overall, I think this has been a solid release cycle, and I give the Canonical people props for what they've done this time around. So we'll shut that one down for a moment, and we can always circle back to these. That's the great part of virtualization. So the Unity spin, which has become official again. This one did not fare quite as well. I do like the purple splash screen, but on a virtual machine, I am kind of stuck on this one because it does not seem to give you an option to switch between Xorg and Wayland. And I get about this far. We get the desktop. And every time previous that I've done this, it kicks me right back out. Just trying to open the settings app. And I think there are other things that, yeah, it does this on as well. I question how much they've tested this in Proxmox specifically. Now, if we log in and the command line, I have not yet installed the guest additions. I'm not sure if this will make a difference. And we'll just restart it and see what happens. Like I said, I'm not expecting this to make a difference, but we'll try it. So we can see that the guest agent is working because we've got an IP address. All right, so that did not make a difference. So we're just going to shut that one down. Like I said, I'm curious to see if Unity is going to behave itself on physical hardware, and I may actually go through and install that on the ThinkPad just as a test. But I'm curious about it. I'm curious to see where the development is on Unity at this point in time, since it's being developed outside of Canonical at this point. Next up, we've got Ubuntu, which is back after a nearly 10-year hiatus. Hey Ken, welcome. Glad to have you back again. So Ubuntu, besides the slight variation on the branding, it comes preloaded with educational software. And I've already got a video recorded. I haven't done any editing on it yet, but I've got one recorded talking about the Ubuntu installer and the Ubuntu menu administration. So they make this easy for an administrator to pull things out of the menu and hide them, and that way inquisitive young people will not try to screw up the system. But I won't go into those here. Those will be out in a video this week. So the big thing that differentiates Ubuntu is the inclusion of software aimed at education. So they've got a section for math, which you can do different things there. Social sciences, so you've got a geography program and a genealogy program in there. Technology has a couple of programming simulation type things. typing tutor, and a couple that I'm not sure what they are based on their names. And science has some things in here. Their periodic table application is kind of interesting. And you can get your different data on the elements in the application, which sure makes it easier than relying just on a textbook. So other than that, it's mostly standard Ubuntu as far as, you know, the settings app and other things included. It is GNOME in this one. And we actually have Wayland running in a VM this time around. So they're pushing Wayland harder, which is all right. I just hope that they can, the powers that be can work to make the remote support applications work better with Wayland, which I think is coming, but during my last investigation, it was not there yet. So yeah, there are definitely things in here, and one of the nice things, I guess I could go into this a little bit, the Ubuntu installer application is rather novel from the angle that you can select your packages that you want installed based on a grade level. So primary school or elementary school, middle school, high school, and then, you know, college level type things. So this is rather interesting. So I turned off a couple of the lower ones and kept the higher age groups. And then the menu administration, anything that's checked is hidden. So you may want to hide other applications if you don't want non-privileged users getting access to them. So obviously the terminal is hidden and things of that nature. Now, with that being said, if the user in question knows anything about Ubuntu, it's not going to take them long to find out, hey, you hit Control-Alt-T and it's going to launch a terminal. Not that they'll be able to do a huge amount with it, but they'll still be able to launch it. So just something to keep in mind. Or you can go in and delete those key bindings as well. But that's a whole other story. Terrell, welcome. We've got a nice little turnout today. Thank you all for being here. So let's see. Let's go ahead and close this one down. And then the final one that I installed is Xubuntu, or a lot of people pronounce it Xubuntu, but this gives you a nice basic desktop and an older style, but still workable menu. The settings applications are a little different, being an XFCE desktop instead of GNOME or a GNOME derivative. So, yeah, I mean, you still got the normal software installed. All applications gives you your categories a la uh, Windows 95 to Windows 7 ish, I guess. Um, you know, you could relocate the menu bar to the bottom. I believe you got to unlock it first, but I don't spend a lot of time in XFCE. But if you've got an older computer around and you just want a basic desktop experience on it, something that's going to be as fast as possible, XFCE is not a bad route to go. I don't know if I would, uh, go as far back as a Core 2 Duo, but maybe starting at, say, a fourth generation I series processor, you can definitely get along with this and do basic office type operations on it, and it's not going to be dog slow. Of course, depending on what disk you've got in the machine. So, all right. Are there any questions so far? We can poke around in XFCE a little more if people want, or we can jump over and take a look at Fedora, which is sort of my next agenda item, I suppose. But let me take a look at one other thing here. Because there is an ISO I had to download on my Mac because it was not cooperating going directly into Proxmox. So we'll take a look at this real quick. Does Ubuntu use Wayland by default, or is it only Xorg? Well, once this file finishes uploading here on the Proxmox, or I might have to abort this again. I might have a bad file. Okay, so Ubuntu. What are we using? I was thinking they had moved this over. To Wayland, but I am not entirely sure. Let's see. Well, let's see what we can figure out here. Okay, so according to itsfoss.com, we have pipe wire included. And okay, some of those improvements include major feature additions to the file manager, updates to XFCE panel, new wallpapers, initial Wayland support. So not sure if it's defaulting to Wayland at this point. And I'm not familiar enough with where they hide things in their settings app to know where to look for that setting, if they've got a setting for it. Failed to edit profile. Synaptic Package Manager. Well, that's fun. Not seeing. An option to change anything. Yeah, Chris, that's a good question. I am not sure if it's, like I said, if it's defaulting to Wayland or if it's using Xorg by default. I know for the longest time, at least in a VM on Proxmox, a lot of the desktops would default to Xorg. And since the article only mentioned initial support for Wayland, I'm not sure if that has changed for Ubuntu at this point in time. But it's right now it's usable. It's regardless of where they are in the transition, I guess at least for my use cases, it would allow an older machine to continue to be used. So that's all I've got, I guess. I'm not. That probably didn't answer your question sufficiently, but yeah. Let's see. I guess one way we could approach this. Well, I would say it's running Xorg, at least in the VM. Had to think through how to do that for a second, but I would call this Xorg as a default. So maybe on real proper hardware, it's running Wayland, but at least in the VM, it's running X. So maybe by the time 24.04 comes out, it will have made the transition. It gives them some time to continue development on the features. So, all right. So we've looked through a few, not all, but a few of the Ubuntu variants. If I switch over to the other, not the Windows machine, the other Proxmox host, I do have Fedora 38 installed. Not sure when I ran this update, so we will run that again. Okay, so Fedora 38 released last Tuesday. Ubuntu and its variants released on Thursday. So I, of course, had to install this and play around with it a little bit. This is also running GNOME 44, I believe. Find out here momentarily. GNOME 44. This is also Wayland. And so far, so good on Fedora 38. As I've said before, I'm not the biggest fan of RPM-based distributions, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and they've made some pretty significant advances in Fedora the last 2 to 4 versions that I've tested. And, you know, it is one of those that's going to get support in get organizational support, I guess I should say. Especially for those people who have bought into the Red Hat ecosystem, now owned by IBM, or Red Hat owns IBM, or whatever you want to, whichever way you want to look at it. This has also been a very stable distribution so far. Does not come with quite as many pieces of software installed as Ubuntu, and you know, that's just them doing their own thing. Red Hat in their distributions, Fedora and Red Hat Enterprise Linux and CentOS Stream, as it's now called, they do push Flatpaks, and that's fine. Like I said, I don't really have a huge preference one way or the other. I just wish snaps were faster. But it does have the integration with FlatHub this time around, and gives you the option of which source you want to use to install your software, which is a nice addition or refinement or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, there are definitely things that I want to explore more in Fedora. They do have a good number of fonts in here that you can install. So if you find something you really like, or you're working on a logo project or some such thing, this may be of use to you. Let's see. By default, they have. Did they really not include a web browser? I guess they did not. So, I guess we could grab Brave, and that gives you is just blah. That is just the FlatHub version that's available, so we can go ahead and install that. I typically use Brave to for StreamYard, and I'm not the biggest fan of Chrome, and although Brave is based on Chromium, I like it better than standard Chrome, and I could still use the plugins if I need to for some reason. The only plugin I'm really using currently is for my password manager, and that's really all I need to get along well. Especially with all these YouTube sites being compromised, shall we say? Different YouTube channels being compromised. Really makes you want to go the extra steps, even if it's a little less convenient. So, but there are some nice additions, things that are being developed for Fedora, and a lot of this stuff I like that it's being packaged in at least one of the universal packages that is cross distribution. I've said for a long time that the more advanced these quote unquote universal package formats become, the less of an excuse commercial software companies have to not release Linux software. Because, for the longest time, and granted, I go 25 years back, a little over 25 years back in the Linux world, but for the longest time, the excuse for not releasing their software on Linux has just simply come down to, oh, there are so many different Linux distributions that we couldn't possibly test them all. And now you really don't have to. You package it as a snap or a flat pack or an app image, and it will run anywhere. Even if you wanted to do a piece of Windows software tested with a version of Wine and package it in a universal format, you can run it anywhere. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll, as these ecosystems get further developed, we will see some additional software packages being released that may not have been on Linux previously. Okay, so Newsflash is an RSS reader, and we'll try something here. Nextcloud News. um, see if that gets me in. Network error. Okay, well let's jump out of that for a minute and let me look at passwords. Okay. Okay, let's try that again. Just do that. Could not log in. Feed API error. Okay. No harm, no foul there. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll jump in and we'll grab the feed URL, because I'm pretty sure that's what the issue is currently. And let's see. I might not have anything on this one. All right. Well, I'll make that into another video. Anyways, you can either you can basically bring your RSS feeds into this and get it from different locations. And this is kind of cool because they have Nextcloud News as one of the options. I know Tom over at Lawrence Systems I believe he's using Fresh RSS. And yeah, it'll be interesting. I've become reacquainted with RSS feeds because YouTube is pushing into the podcast arena. So I'll be able to get podcasts through there. It also, they do have RSS feeds for YouTube channels, so you can see when people have released new videos, and given the state of notifications on the YouTube platform, anything I can do to make sure I'm getting notifications from the channels I follow is a welcome thing. Yeah, this is so far going well with Fedora, with the new versions of Ubuntu, minus the Unity version, which is acting flaky in a VM. All right, so we have Carlos. Welcome. The only extension I use right now is a right-click re-enabler. All right. I'm unfamiliar with those, but If it works for you, more power. So, coming up this week and beyond, I guess I could bring myself on camera again. So, upcoming this week and beyond, the video on Ubuntu will probably come out tomorrow. Midweek news on Wednesday as normal. If everything goes well in my continued testing, Friday is likely going to be Wazoo, which I have that here running. So just as a little bit of a preview, Wazoo lets you do it has an agent and it collects data from your different computers related to security. Very high level. Excuse me. Okay. Well, please set up Wazoo API credentials. Let's log out. Did I take the machine down? Well, that would be why. The machine is not running currently. Okay, so, yeah. If everything goes well, Friday is going to be Wazoo. And it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be my first look into it, really. I think I've got one machine set up with the agent to report back into Wazoo. And for people unfamiliar, Wazoo is an open source security platform that will tell you how compliant you are with different tests, including PCI DSS, including GDPR, and some others. And, you know, it's all about giving that visibility to the people managing the systems. Along with pretty graphs and reports that you can give to the management types. So, you know, it's just something I'm doing my first exploration of. I've heard about this for a few years now, but I've never delved into it too much. But they do have, if we go to look at install Wazoo, they do have a pre-built virtual machine. And it does, in fact, once you do the import process, it does, in fact, work in Proxmox. Took me 2 tries to make it work, but that was my fault. So this is a pretty complex system. So I'm going to be using to do my initial work on this. I'm going to use their pre-built VM. Once I'm more familiar with it, then I'm going to, down the road at some point, I'm going to do a full install from their command line information and build up a fully up-to-date system that will run this software. And the reason I don't want to run their appliance long term is because it's built on CentOS 7, which is a dead end. And unless they rebase their appliance on Elma Linux or Rocky Linux, I don't want to keep running it on something that's not going to be supported. So that is a little bit of a rundown on what's coming up this week. Next Sunday, I may or may not be live. I'm not 100% sure yet. I am currently scheduled to be visiting friends out of town, and it's just going to depend on whether I can come up with something ahead of time that I want to talk about and have an outline prepared so that it's easy to do from a remote location. Because I really don't want to haul a bunch of equipment down there this time around. It makes it less relaxing to haul all the stuff down there and then have to haul it all back in and set it back up again. And I'm kind of over it at this point. So Sunday may be a premiere instead of a live video, but even if it's a premiere, you'll find me in chat, and that might be the best of both worlds type of situation for when I'm traveling. And yeah, that's what's happening this coming week. So, are any of you working on any interesting projects? Are there any new distributions or Linux software that you'd like to see coming up? I am always looking for suggestions. I will show you a preview of one other thing here. I just have to find where it's at. Let's see. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick. I am going to do a video on this. I was contacted by Molt Cloud, and basically this gives you a way to migrate data between different cloud storage locations. And you might be thinking, hey, wait, Jeremy, you've already covered our clone, which does that, and it does it for free. Why would I want to use this product? Well, that is a question that only you can answer. But, if you are having some entry-level technicians work on a project, then you may want to put them on something like this instead of an R clone, which is slightly less user-friendly, shall we say. Hey, there I am again. But yeah, I'm still testing this. I did set up new cloud accounts just to test this. So I'm not using any of my actual data or nothing that is of any real value. I might have uploaded like some screenshots and things, but nothing of any particular value to me. And it's got its place, I suppose, right? It does not support as many cloud endpoints as what rclone does. And to get the full speed out of it, you have to have a paid plan. That being said, if you're a small business, if there are non-technical users out there in your organization and you need to do a migration, this may be a product for you. I just yeah, that's the little preview. I'm not going to go much further into it at this point. Long live rclone, yes. I just found myself in the last week or two using rclone at the library, and it's like set it up once and you do your thing, right? So let's see. You probably already did this, but I'm getting a lot of questions about white hat hacking tools, Kali Linux. I thought about doing that, but did not have my VM server ready for that yet. Yeah, I got some feedback when I was covering Kali and Black Ubuntu and some of the other quote unquote hacking distributions. I tend to refer to them more as security tool distributions or pen testing distributions or something along that line. They're just terms that are less in your face, don't have the negative connotation attached to them. I have struggled and gone back and forth on how deep to go on those tools because there are already channels out there dedicated to Kali and others that have gone very deep on the coverage. I also don't want to risk getting on the wrong side of the YouTube powers that be, and going into some of those topics adds a little more risk in my estimation. I do like those distributions just because every time I sit and dig into one of them, I always learn a new tool that I might not have previously been familiar with. And if you approach it from the I know what I want to do, but I don't know the tool to do it type of angle, Kali and friends are great places to discover those things. So but yeah, I have some additional ideas for things to do with Kali. I just need to get some additional things set up myself, so that I can properly isolate from the rest of my network. I found myself using IMAP Sync lately. Just last week, I migrated over 80 clients from GoDaddy Mail to Namecheap. Nice. That's another tool that I'm not familiar with, I have to say. But I've never had to make a migration like that. Let's take a look. IMAP Sync migration tool. The mailbox changer. Afraid of losing all your precious emails? It's time to copy them elsewhere safely. And welcome to X-Free Google Workspace people. Yep. I have started using another mail provider in addition to my Gmail box. And I have very much been thinking about doing a mass migration out of Gmail and then using it mainly for subscriptions and YouTube correspondence. So I may take a look at this a little deeper. It sounds interesting. So, and the author's name is Giles. Or, yeah, interesting. All right. There are many people going after those related certifications these days. High demand in the job market. Yes. Yep. If I did anything on those Kali tools, it would be centered on practicing for those certifications. My FE exam videos are still doing well on my channel. Very evergreen. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, part of the reason I did a poll a while back, and part of the reason I asked in that poll about software version numbers is just that there are many open source tools, especially those included in Kali and Friends, shall we say, that you know, it's been 10 years since they've had a major update, but they're still useful tools, or else they wouldn't be getting included in, you know, 2023 versions of Kali and Friends. So, you know, it's one of those things that is interesting to me. So, but yeah, I've been doing a little more work over at IT Pro TV on some of their labs that they make available there, because I'm looking at the potential of the second half of this year going after at least one certification exam. And I really want to get moving on that and get to a point where I can potentially change jobs at the next part of the year, second half of the year, and make a little more money because YouTube is not a get-rich-quick scheme, as I'm sure we're all available. We all know. So, Linux Professional is also popular right now too. Yep. And that's one that I've looked at doing. Nessus knowledge is gold these days. Yep, it's been a number of years since I've worked with Nessus. I have more recently played with OpenVaz, which is forked from Nessus before they went closed source. But OpenVaz is nice. I've actually run this against my home network before, and definitely used it to change some things here. And I've been contemplating using this and or um, uh, other free options at the library, just to have more visibility in our security posture. Um, so it's one of those things. The management and the board don't seem terribly interested in or worried about security, but um, they and the rest of the staff, for that matter, don't understand everything I do behind the scenes either, to safeguard that things are going to continue to stay up and running. It's had me recently wondering if I shouldn't start inquiring at other small libraries about offering them services that they're likely not getting currently. So, but yeah, OpenVAS has gone in a little bit different direction in recent years. They have started making the free version here available as Docker containers, which is nice in a lot of ways. But it's one of those things that I used to be able to just download their appliance and run it for what I needed. So I need to spend a little more time getting used to their new setup with the Docker container and get that running on my network. So this is it's going to be interesting. There are definitely things that I need to dig deeper into on this. So, but yeah, they not give a don't give you the ability to zoom in on that. So yeah, that's the community release diagram. So I'm things are getting there. Things are getting there. It's just taking a little longer than I had wanted to get everything sort of moved around on the new equipment and ready to roll again. Many companies are finally pulling their heads out of the sand on knowing about these tools being used against them. Yes, and it's about time. Once I retire, however, I'll let my CISSP certification go. The scars are too deep when it comes to trying to pull those heads out of the sand. I don't blame you. I don't blame you there. We talked about this once during one of our videos together, but I just had a major fight with my organization. Yeah, and hiring an intern. Yep. Yeah, it's sad in a lot of ways that, and I've not experienced it firsthand yet, but there are many um, organizations out there that when it comes to their tech workers, they engage in ageism, and if you're over a certain age, they don't want you, or they don't value your skill set, or you're just too expensive and they don't want to pay you. uh, but as a lot of organizations that have a long history of using COBOL for their software have found out, um, you need those experienced people to train the younger ones coming up and give them the um, mentorship, to get them up to speed so they can maintain those systems uh, going forward. And I think in a lot of ways, uh, that realization is going to have to come into the security sector uh, a little more, because things are changing so fast that it's difficult for somebody breaking into security to get up to speed as fast as the organization might want them to. So, um, yeah. Let's see. They want to hire one with a criminal record for hacking since he obviously knows how to do it. In the minds of some tech legal and understanding criminal deficiencies. Yep. I've heard of organizations doing that before, and sometimes it's a um, an ultimatum for the person. Stay out of jail and come to work in a legit place, or y- you know um, that type of thing. Um, I've not heard as many stories of that lately, but back when, and I'm sure David, you remember this, but um, in the late '90s, during that whole Free Kevin Mitnick movement, um, after he was kept imprisoned without a trial and for so long, and all that kind of stuff. Um, you know, I haven't heard a lot of stories about it lately, but I'm sure they're out there. They want to pay him cheap with the thinking he wouldn't dare anymore. Right. I've known a few. Yep. Um, back in the dark recesses of my time on the internet, um, you know, during the dial-up era, when uh, DNS was not as prevalent as it is today, um, I would just kind of look around, and there were a couple of sites that had zero security that I got connected to, and I very quickly disconnected because it was not something that I wanted to be connected to. But That being said, with these systems having zero security, that was, telnet days. It was easy for people to connect to those systems with just an IP address. So, Hugo, welcome. But yeah. So hopefully I will be doing more with OpenVAS here coming up, probably into May. Um, but yeah, there are definitely, we've talked about things that are coming up this week, and hopefully I'll be able to get one or two videos that do halfway decent. Um, I was impressed with the one video I released, this importing an OVA into Proxmox. So I had made this video for two reasons. But first and foremost was that I had made this video over here 2 years ago, migrating a VM from VirtualBox to Proxmox VE, and there were a few more steps you had to go through to make it work. And in the most recent version of Proxmox, that has got easier. So that was part of the reason I wanted to make this, but I also wanted to keep the Wazoo video that I'm going to be working on this week shorter. And I could do that by linking to this video to import the OVA and put it in a card and put it in the description, and hopefully it will give people the information they need. So this migrating from VirtualBox to Proxmox, that was kind of a surprise to me that it did that well, because I really didn't know at the time how many people would view that, but it's been kind of an evergreen type video. So I've gone back into this video and added a card. I added a pinned comment, and I added a link in the. Maybe I didn't add the link in the description, but that's actually almost 3 years old. But I did at least add the pinned comment and a card because the process has changed. And the interesting thing is I had also got some recent comments. Here's one from 3 days ago on this video that's 3 years old. So I wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases and made the information available that, hey, there's from 6.1 Proxmox to 7.4, there's a new utility that makes this process easier. So, but at 26,000 views, I'm not taking this video down. And excuse me, the you still can do it the way I did it in this video, but There are just easier ways to do it now. RCP and RSH without a password as well. Yes, absolutely. Remote copy and remote shell. Yep. I was there. I was in at the tail end of it, but I was there, and it was kind of one of those scared straight moments. I was uncomfortable with where I was, and I knew I wanted to get out quickly, and I'm not sure if I reconnected to the internet for even a couple of days after that. Not that it wouldn't have stopped the authorities from finding me if it were really an offense worth investigating. But it's just one of those things from the dark recesses of the internet that used to be, shall we say. But yeah, this is things are going all right. I'm pretty happy this most recent video I put out. It's number 2, so I can't complain there. And it's above normal expectations for a video on my channel. So good times. It's coming. I'm trying not to put a lot of emphasis on staring at numbers, and just more concentrate on making the videos and keeping things coming out. And again, the channel started partly for when I was teaching and partly for self-documentation. More than one occasion I have referred back to my own videos and referenced an article that I've put in the description, or reference part of the video just to refresh myself on how to do something a certain way. And yeah, it's never been easier to do that. So if you're out there and you're seeing this and you're working in tech, even if you don't want to publish public YouTube videos, you could consider, throwing some short videos up for your own use. And like I said, self-documentation. Because let's face it, none of us are getting any younger, and at some point, you just can't remember everything. I've done the same thing with my older videos as well. Yeah, it's and some of the videos that I've done primarily for self documentation. Some of those have surprised me, and they've, blown up in the context of what my typical videos do. Not in the context of YouTube overall, but in the context of what my videos do. I've had a few that have kind of exceeded my expectations. I think the just for the sake of argument here, we'll sort by views. My most viewed video was released in December of 2019, and it's 16 views away from having 45,000 views. So I'm pretty happy with some of these that are, 20,000 and above views. Some of them I'm not sure will ever reach that, but I've got a number that are over 10,000, which is not awful either. Because I've got a lot of videos that aren't near that, but it's one of those things. All in due time. There's a piece of the pie for everybody. Maybe a small piece of the pie, but it's a piece of the pie nonetheless. So, I can't stress enough that if you're making videos, just keep pushing. Keep pushing. I originally created my channel for a legacy so that my descendants can see me in action. As I mentioned to you before, I wish I had that for my father to show my kids and grandchildren. Absolutely. I guess in part I've kind of adopted that idea, but I don't have kids, so um, you know at least I'll have left a small mark on the world, however small that might be in the grand scheme of things. But um, you know, I'm past the age where I want to even consider bringing a child into this world. Even if I were to meet the right person tomorrow, I would be very hesitant because there's no guarantees at this point that I would live to see them graduate high school. So, um, yeah, I mean, there was a time about 14 years ago that I was on board with the idea of potentially having kids, but that just, in my estimation, was not meant to be. So, all right. Well, on that note, it's been almost 90 minutes, and I don't want to monopolize everybody's Sunday. I know it's not the warmest Sunday, at least here in Michigan it's not, but I think the sun is shining at least, so that's a nice thing. Um, but yeah, uh, hopefully we'll have a couple videos this week that people might enjoy and get something out of. And if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I think everybody in chat is already subscribed. I think I did make that change to the setting today. Um, but yeah, I appreciate all the feedback and the support from everybody in chat, especially, and people that leave comments after the fact. Uh, I couldn't do this without all of you. So thank you for that, and have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.